I'd say why stop there? Why not kill 5 people?
Right.
We're gonna cut this. Welcome back to another episode.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of What the Fuck Do You Do? We got the OG boys here. No guests today. Shrey, T Foxy Trav, Justin Jawong Dong. Thought I would try out some new nicknames.
Wong Dong Soup.
How you guys feeling?
Good.
Yeah.
Tired, but chill.
Why are you tired?
We partied last night. We pretended like we were 23 again.
Yeah, and as we covered last episode, we are 30. We're
Very 30.
Very
Yeah.
30.
Actually, since last episode, you weren't 30, but now you are 30.
Yeah.
Life has changed so much.
How does it feel now?
It feels good. I mean, I feel like I've been mentally 30 for a little bit, so this is the natural progression of things. But yeah, officially 30. I've only had a few moments of existential crisis, which is better than what I expected. So, in a good place.
How many existential crises would you typically have?
Oh, for a random birthday, none. But 30, I only had one where I thought, I was looking at myself in the mirror, I'm like, next time we do this, you'll be 60. What are we going to do in the next 30 years? And then I was like, oh shit, what if the second 30 is worse than the first 30? And then that was the second one.
Yeah, but you don't even remember like a third of your first 30.
Yeah. Like 1 through 10, years
Yeah.
1 through 10.
I mean, there was bits and pieces, 1 through 10.
Just garbage years.
I would not say those are. Do you want to talk about? Mine weren't garbage years, but go on.
Also, mentally, I think you've been 16 for 14 years.
Yeah, for sure. That's a constant, though. That's not going to change.
You told me last night that you grinded on a lot of girls in high school.
I didn't. No.
Yeah, in fact, you got mad at Shrey for not grinding on girls before the end of high school.
For context, that's not what I said. What I said was, like, when we started grinding, it was in high school. And I don't know where this middle school thing is coming out.
I said in middle school we were doing this, and you were like, who is doing what? And I was like, that's what you did in middle school dances. You had like an arm's length, and she has her hands on your shoulders, and you have her hands around your waist, and there is about 3 feet of distance, and you just...
For Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically the width of a Jesus.
One Jesus.
Yeah, and then you thought that was weird, and then you said you didn't go to any middle school dances.
I'm being gaslit right now. I did not say any of this. Fuck you, Shrey.
You know what we should bring back as adults is the lock-in, where we like take over a school gym and just have a sleepover with all our friends.
Oh.
That's called loitering when you're an adult.
Well, not if you rent it.
It doesn't sound cute as an adult. It sounds creepy.
We're going to go to the school gym and
Yeah.
shut it down.
I mean, not like in middle school. I guess it is weird when you think about it like that, yeah.
Like, where did you think we were going to do it?
I don't know. Let's rent out like a club and have a sleepover.
A club. We're going to go to the club and bring sleeping bags.
We're going to Hotel Chantel. We're going to close it down.
No free ads.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we get to the main topic?
Yes.
Which is, what the fuck do you do when you get fired?
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Have any of y'all been fired?
I have not been fired, which is shocking.
That is shocking.
I don't know though. We've talked about this. You no-called, no-showed the Oasis, which
I worked as a waiter for exactly 1 day.
which I mean, I think technically you were fired.
I mean, I just never showed back up. I went on to do other work.
I think that's quitting.
That's quitting. If
But-
I had another job, that's quitting.
Yeah. It's just quitting in a not cool way.
I was 16.
He wasn't grinding on girls yet.
I was working.
On his grind.
He was hustling.
Have y'all gotten fired?
I've been fired. Yeah.
I have been laid off. I do think there's a distinction.
Well, tell me about yours.
Well, yeah, I got laid off. My first job out of college was after 2 years. And it was actually great because I wanted to leave. And then they just gave me like 3 months of severance. And I was like, okay, great. You guys kind of gave me the kick in the pants that I needed to go actually like change careers. And then gave me a little bit of runway to do it.
Had you been thinking of leaving that job anyway?
Yeah. It was consulting. So it was traveling all the time and just pretty not fun lifestyle in terms of work.
What was the lifestyle?
Is wake up every Monday morning at like 3 a.m. to go catch a flight. And being in Austin, there's also not a lot of like direct flights. So you're like flying for a lot of the day. Then you get there, work all day into the night. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're working. Thursday night, you come back.
And then just do it all over again?
And you just do it all over again. And then there's some times that's when you're on a project. And projects are for like a finite length of time. So it could be like 6-month project, 3-week project. When you're not on a project, you're on the bench, which means you're like in between projects. And you're supposed to be doing like proposal work and like helping out other people in the firm or whatnot. But like you don't have 40 hours worth of work to do. Mm-hmm. So it's very unsettling because you need to be finding project work. And you actually get measured on like how much of the year did you work on a project versus not. And I got laid off because I didn't actually meet that metric.
So it took you too long to find a new project.
It took me too long. I actually, though, like, I was trying really hard. Yeah. Like, it doesn't sound as great, like, being on the bench where it's, like, you're not really, like, working that much. But it's kind of unsettling because it's, like, I feel like I should be doing more. And, like, I had spreadsheets of, like, okay, this person has potentially got a project. Like, I had, like, this pipeline and I was, like, emailing people, like, every day, like, hey, still available, like, and just kind of was, like, the firm wasn't selling enough projects. And so by the end, they were like, well, you didn't meet your utilization metric. So, yeah, you're done.
I don't understand why it's so hard to find work within your company. Like, that feels really backwards.
It's crazy. And, like, the firm I was at was, like, really big. And it was literally, like, trying to find a job within the company. Like, there were some projects where I had to fill out an application, like answer 5 questions, like, why do you want to do mergers and acquisitions? I'm like, I just need to work. That's why I want to do this.
It's like, you already hired me.
Yeah. And yeah, it's kind of like, why am I having to like prove that I'm like good enough to work here if you already hired me?
Yeah.
It seems like the company who hired you should be the one assigning you work rather than you going out of your way to like find your own shit to do.
Because you got good... I imagine you got pretty good reports from the projects you worked on before.
Yeah.
So it's like, it wasn't like people, like you were a pariah of your own making. This sounds like a management issue.
Well, yeah. And what's funny is like when I did get the notice that I was going to be let go, like I was on a project and I told my boss, I was like, hey, so I actually just found out like in 1 or 2 months, I'm going to be gone from the firm. And he was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, here, we'll handle it. Like, you're doing a great job. We'll try and get you to stick on. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, okay.
Oh, no.
You don't have to do that.
I booked my vacation.
Yeah.
Well, so what was the day that you found out? Like, what actually happened? Did you talk to HR? Did you get an email?
I talked to HR. They gave me a call basically saying, yeah, like you're not going to be at the firm anymore. And then I think they gave me the timings of like, you'll get to stay on to like finish out your project. And then we're going to give you this much severance. And then you're completely off like the payroll or whatever. And then if you want to reapply, you can reapply. And, you know, with my pride, I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. Right. And then I got that call when I was like on the project, and then I just told my boss immediately, like in a one-on-one, and then he was like, "Oh, okay." And then, so I don't know.
You sound like you were pretty happy with it. Was it 100% like positive feelings? Because I don't imagine that other people getting laid off is like 100% positive.
Yippee.
I wouldn't say 100%. Like if you get laid off, you definitely like take a little bit hit to the ego of like, oh, okay, maybe I just wasn't adequate enough as like a professional or whatever. But overall, I was like thinking that on the projects that I was working, like the people liked my work. And so, yeah, and I didn't want to be there anymore. So I was like, okay, you're giving me money and this is a chance to kind of like do something new. So it was like mostly positive feelings, I would say.
Just kicking the ass to reset a little bit.
Yeah. And I was living at home at the time because I was traveling all the time. And so like, I do think the big thing about getting laid off is like the financial repercussions. Like I no longer have a paycheck. I've got rent to pay, I've got all these bills to pay. Maybe some people have like dependents out there, and like that amplifies like the stress of it. But for me, I was 23 or 4, was living in my parents' place. I had this runway, and I was like, okay, fine. I don't have kids or anything, so
That you know of.
I do know that I don't have any kids, I think.
So, I mean, I think one of the things, and I do think it's getting less and less so with like mass layoffs that are happening right now, but there's definitely, especially in our parents' generation, the stigma around being let go from a job. Like,
Totally.
You kept your job your whole career. Like,
Yeah.
my dad worked at the same company for 45 years and was always terrified of like being let go. He was like, if they ever fire me, it's all over. Like,
Yeah.
It's all done. So, like, what was the conversation with your parents like? I'm curious. Like, did you feel there was a stigma around it, or like?
No, because I had been like telling my parents like throughout, like kind of, hey, I'm like having a hard time like finding projects, and like I'm trying hard to do it, and they were kind of like, yeah, I don't know, that's kind of a weird situation.
Yeah.
And so I think they were kind of like, yeah, like that wasn't a good fit, so now's the time to go do something. I think, and they were actually pretty good about like not putting pressure of like you need to find a job immediately.
Nice.
But I think their way of like kind of getting me to, go at it again was like, okay, you're gonna have to start like paying for stuff around here.
Your parents charge you rent?
They didn't charge me rent. Well, I can't remember. I remember my mom came in my room and was like, you're here now. Like, you're not traveling, so like, you're gonna have to like pay for some stuff. And I was like, okay.
Seems fair.
Yeah, it was totally fair.
We've let you go from the family plan.
Something like that. Yeah.
Are you still on your parents' cell phone plans?
No.
Oh God, no. Yeah,
No.
18, they booted me off that.
My brother and I had like
Or
share a
college.
plan.
Yeah.
I'm never getting off.
I mean, it kind of like makes sense in some situations. It's like
It's cheap.
4 lines, right?
Yeah.
It's cheaper than if you
way
just had
better.
your own. So like,
And I'm stupid, so sometimes I need my mom to help.
yeah.
I don't remember the passwords to my like phone plan stuff. Ask her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't either.
I had to completely separate all my accounts from my mom because she was very susceptible to phone scammers for a while. So I'd get a call that's like, I just gave our account info. And I'm like, no. And so, yeah, no, I'm on my own. I'm on an island.
Okay, what about you? What was like the experience like for you getting laid off, fired?
Yeah, it was like jarring, but ultimately really positive.
Yeah.
And it was definitely messy, like I think a little bit messier. So it's my first job out of college. Was working at a ed tech startup in San Francisco, and I joined as like the first salesperson, first partnerships guy. It was like employee number 12, like a small venture-backed startup, and like worked directly with the COO for 2 years. Like we built out like all these partnerships, like built the first sales model. It was like a really cool job because I don't think there was any other opportunity at like 22 to do the stuff that I like have the responsibility that I did. It's like talking to university presidents and like making deals and writing contracts and like negotiating and traveling. And so parts of the job were really, really cool. Other parts of the job were like incredibly stressful, and I didn't really know at the time that it wasn't the most healthy work environment. Like, and so probably this is like a year and a half in, I was still working in sales. We kind of like built out the team, and I was already a little bit bored because we were doing the same stuff. Like it was the same cold call a university, do a proposal, like fail half the time, move on. And so I was already like interested in getting new skills. And then weirdly though, I had a bad motorcycle accident. So I totaled my motorcycle on the freeway outside of Oakland, like just a really kind of gnarly, jarring accident. I had like a bad concussion and stuff. And so I took like a little bit of time off of work. And then when I came back, I had like kind of like PTSD and depression. It's like I'd also like fucked up my ankle, so I wasn't able to move around a lot. And I was just like not having a good time at work. And so I went from like either number 1 or 2 on the team every month for sales to like 3 or 4 for a little bit. And I remember
How crazy.
I know, no, yeah. It was like the difference of like 10 grand a month to the company, right? And so at the time, like I'd really drank the Kool-Aid of like we're a family. This startup is your
no.
home.
You fell for it.
Yeah, because it's like I'd known these, like I was there so early, and like we had gone on trips together. I'd met everyone's families and stuff like that. And I remember.
Oh wow.
I remember I had like a one-on-one with the CEO, and we were at a coffee shop. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just like really struggling with like motivation. I'm like kind of depressed. I'm thinking like, maybe I could move to account management or some other part of the team. He's like, like when I was having a tough time earlier in my life, I just woke up earlier and grinded harder.
Ew.
And he was like, I think you need to get up at 5:30 every morning and just work out.
Fuck
and then like
this guy.
do some
God.
mindfulness. It was like the Gary Vee mentality advice. And at the time I was like, okay, like sure. And so it obviously didn't work and didn't solve any of the problems. I still wasn't actually doing poorly. I was like bringing in business, just not at the top of the team. But I definitely expressed like I wanted to move teams. And then for like 3 months, basically, I never got put on a PIP or anything. There was no formal stuff. But my boss, the COO, just became more and more like aggressive in our working relationship.
How so?
So we had been doing like one-on-ones Wednesday mornings, like normal shit with your boss, pipeline review. He moved them to Sunday nights so we could get a jump on the week. And so he could do his wedding planning during the weeknights and stuff. So like that was awful because the Sunday scaries that you'd normally have on a Sunday night were now my like Sunday morning or Saturday night. Oh my God. And imagine like going through your Salesforce pipeline with your boss at like 9 p.m. on Sundays before you start the work week. I was also working like 6 territories. So I had the UK accounts, East Coast accounts, and West Coast accounts. So some days my phone calls would start at like 6 in the morning and go till like 7 p.m. So the days were just like miserable. I wanted to be off the team. And so then like a couple months after that, I just came to work one day and like had a one-on-one with my boss and like the head of HR. And they're just like, oh yeah, it's not working out. And so in the moment, like, I was like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Like, I'm not having fun. I told you I wasn't having fun.
Yeah.
And like, I think in the moment I was like very down on myself because I'm like, oh, I let the team down.
Yeah.
In retrospect, when I look back at it, I actually really wasn't doing anything that I wouldn't recommend a young person to do, which is like advocate for your own growth after a couple of years in a job.
You probably didn't know how.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to say no to my bosses either. So that was
Right.
like very toxic. But yeah, it totally sucked in the moment. And they're like, sign all these papers, give us your laptop, like you're out of here today kind of thing. So I didn't get a notice. It was like same day.
Yeah.
But they gave me a contract, which was really weird. And so they're like, we still think you're actually really good at this job, which is really confusing feedback.
Yeah.
We'd like you to manage like 4 accounts for 3 months, and we'll pay you like a contract rate to close those accounts for renewal. They're like deals that I had made the year before. And so they gave me 24 hours to sign it and also to like buy my stock and stuff. So I was just kind of like panic mode and I signed yes on everything. So technically I was a contract employee for 3 more months, but about a month in I was like, I'm not fucking working for you
They
anymore.
did you so dirty.
Yeah.
Oh
And so
my
I was just
God.
like, I just like exited the accounts gracefully and like, I'd probably lost some money on it because I didn't close them, but I was just like, I'm like, why am I working for someone that just fired me?
Yeah.
Like what the fuck?
Yeah.
But at the time, yeah, I had like already really wanted to do something else. I was like not super happy in the company. So it ended up being a really good reset moment. And it took me maybe a month to find my next job, and it ended up paying double what I was making. So it was just like, it was a great move.
If that would have happened to you now, what do you think you would have done differently in both of your stories?
I think when I was struggling, I would have like pushed for more formal support. Like, I think I backed down pretty easily at the time. And then definitely wouldn't have signed a contract to continue work with the company
Yeah.
that fired me. And knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have bought their stock either because they went out of business 2 years later.
You just made all the wrong calls.
Yeah, bad decisions all made in a 24-hour period.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in that, you're like, oh my God, this company's going to change the world. We're all going to be rich. It's like,
You really fell for a lot of stuff.
I was a bright-eyed young Silicon Valley wannabe.
Let's cut him some slack. He was in a like motorcycle wreck too, and he was just like dealing with some shit.
That's
Yeah,
true.
So
yeah.
that part, so that's actually a really big part. I I still don't have a great grasp, but I wish I understood workplace accommodations better back then. Because I could have negotiated for like remote work for a while. I could have taken medical leave. I didn't know like therapy was a good resource back then either. And work definitely didn't pay for it. And so there's some like, I think more like protecting myself and my health. I would have invested more time in if I knew what was going to happen then. But.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm also giving you a little bit of shit because, like, I feel like in my experience, like, the companies I worked at, they definitely, like, try to sell you on this, like, very, like, happy vision of, like, we're all in this together. And I'm like, you're just going to treat us like a number at the end of the day. I've experienced it. I've seen it. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not going to, I actually get very guarded about telling people, like, what I even do, like, outside of work or whatever, because I just don't want people to be like, oh, you had time to do this, but you didn't have time to do this at your job. And I'm like, I don't want you, no.
Do you still feel that way?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely people that I can talk to at work where, like, we can go beyond, like, work and we can talk about, like, personal stuff. But even, like, my boss, who I think is very cool, I'm not going to just, like, I don't know, openly talk about, like, here's all the things that I did. And then, like, she's like, well, this work that you actually did for your job was not that great.
I mean, I see both sides of it. Because, like, one, I find throughout my career, like, leveling with your managers, your coworkers has a ton of value. But, like, anytime a company drops the F word, family, I'm out. Like, like, I know immediately where we're going on this. You're going to ask me to do something because we're family, and we're not. I get paid to do these things. So
it is like it's a way for them to invade into your, like, personal space. Be like, we're all a family here. We need to work this Saturday together. It's like, no.
You have to have boundaries between your work and your personal life. And I totally get where you're coming from, too. Like, not everyone, and sorry, Trav, I know you're very, very different. Like, not everyone gets to know everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually a good way of putting it. Like, not everyone deserves to know everything.
I don't know you.
Yeah, because you don't, like, it's where you don't need to make excuses for your personal life. Like, you don't have to justify having a division between work and home. But I get caught up in that, too, even with the podcast, which feels so, like, backwards. I'm like, oh, I don't want people to know I was recording this weekend because I'm behind on this project.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I'm allowed to have hobbies. I'm allowed to have a personal life.
Right. I've also, like, I've had the experience where, so, like, when I was in this first job, like, we would get rated after every project, and you get, like, a rating of, like, 1 through 4 or something. 1 is, like, the best. 2 is not. 2 is good. 3 is you need some improvement. 4 is really bad. And, like, I remember this manager, he was like, yeah, you basically did the level of a 1, but I'm going to give you a 2 because you're a first year. I'm like, what? Either give me a 2 because that's what the right rating is, or give me a 1. But why are you just bringing in this extra factor of, like, my like, seniority?
That's ageism.
That hurts you financially.
It actually does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's why.
But it's like that was literally like an arbitrary, like, oh, like, you did a 1 job, but you're just too young, so I'm just gonna give you 2.
So give me the fucking 1.
Like,
okay, boundaries. Advice: definitely don't take a Sunday night one-on-one with your boss in any circumstances. How else do you set boundaries between your work and your personal life?
I just block shit off my calendar.
Yeah.
Actually.
I started to do that. It's something I learned with my current boss now, and I'd never done it before. She blocks off admin times, like ask to book here. I also think that setting up boundaries has to be intentional. Like, you need to commit to it.
Yeah.
Because I think in the space where we are, like 30s, like in this era, like there's a lot of commitments out there, and like the thing that I think about is no one cares as much as my anxiety tells me they care
Right.
about what I do.
I mean, everyone at the gym isn't watching me work out.
I mean, they're watching.
Yeah, for how sick I am. But.
I do think where you choose to work also is like the prerequisite to this, because there's some industries or some companies where demanding like this 40-hour work-life balance is probably going to be near impossible. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe it's like you got to close deals, you're on crunches, like that's just the expectation of the job. And so I think it would be better to just pick an industry or pick a company where if that's what you value, work-life balance or, some sort of boundaries, then do that beforehand. I'm curious for you, Justin, like if you were to get laid off from your current position, like how would you handle it? What would you do?
I would panic. I'd panic for a little bit. I'd probably take one day to do nothing and just be in my feels for a little bit, just go full sad boy.
Yeah.
Then I think I would be an absolute lunatic at trying to find a new job. I would just start spraying.
Okay. So you would immediately just go into finding a new job, same type of job.
I would go to find a paycheck knowing, I don't know, because like I'm so afraid of things crumbling and then being homeless. And now that now that being married, I do feel like I have to contribute at least half, right? So I think I would probably get on the job search immediately just to feel like I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
If I was by myself, I would probably take a little bit more time and be more methodical about it. But I do think that when you have a significant other, when you're like splitting rents,
Yeah.
I can't.
That puts pressure on her.
Yeah, I don't want her to have to cover more than
Yeah.
she needs to.
Yeah.
Well, she could. Girl kills it.
It's also like there's a lot more pressure now, like living in New York,
Yeah.
on a lease. Like even if I have a big chunk of savings or something, like that's gone in 3-4 months. If I'm not working, if I'm not bringing in a paycheck.
It can be tough out there. Like
Yeah.
I definitely know people who are going through that process of being, like, functionally unemployed, and like it definitely wears on you. Like human beings are not meant to, like, we need to be active. We need to be doing things. We're not meant to just sit on our hands all day.
Yeah.
And we got to pay the bills.
It's just
The reality.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I've coached like probably a dozen of my like graduates through layoffs this year, just because tech got hit so hard across the board, and so it's like it's sadly felt routinized for me, but it's just like it's such an unpleasant conversation.
What are the tips?
Yeah, I mean first of all, it's like take some time to do nothing and like reset your brain and like be in the feels. I think that's really good advice. Like don't do it for 2 months and like, build a depression fort in your room or something like that. But like a couple of days of not panicking, just being and like taking time for yourself. Spend a lot of time like understanding severance packages and when unemployment hits. It's like really important just to like make sure you're getting money in the door. If, 6 weeks after you're laid off, like you can qualify for it. It's an extra, couple grand a month. It can like really make a difference. And then spend some time like cataloging everything you did in your last job, like write it out like a job description so that you have it for interviews, for your resume, redo all your professional profiles, reach out to everybody from your old job and ask for references and recommendations. So it's like, hey, I'm looking for this next position. Can you help out? And then just target the shit out of a job search, basically. Like, what did you like? What did you hate about your old job? What are you looking for in your next one? Go network first, drive for referrals, and then just like open it up with like a pretty systematic application process from there.
What is a systematic application process? Because I don't know what that is.
I mean, it depends on the person and the industry, but like, so the numbers I usually share is like a referral is worth 10 cold applications at least. In this market, probably closer to 30 cold applications. And so you want to be maximizing the amount of time you're spending like networking and working with your network. Versus just, easy applying on LinkedIn and stuff. But usually how like I recommend splitting up the week is kind of like a sales process. Like on Mondays, you spend 3 or 4 hours like prospecting. So you're looking at opportunities in your network where your friends work, their companies are hiring. You're looking for networking events that week, like in your city, tech meetups, entrepreneur sessions, like whatever. And then that might be your afternoon on Monday. On Tuesday, you're sending emails to all your friends asking if they can refer you to the role, and you're pushing like apply and sending your resume out en masse to all the other ones that you found. And then the rest of the week, you're just following up, you're practicing, you're doing interview prep. And like, I really do think if you're doing that for 2 months full time, like you're gonna be fine.
Yeah. What about have you had someone who had a strong tie to their identity with their job? Like, oh, I'm a salesperson at this company, like I think I'm great, and then you get laid off and then it's like, man, this was such a huge part of who I was.
Yeah.
Like this is a psychological hit.
It's huge because it's so easy to have an identity crisis. Like, I was a software engineer. Am I not good enough to do this? Like,
Yeah.
Do I not belong in this industry? Should I go back to school? Should I take like an IT role? Should I like downgrade myself? It's really hard, but I think you just have to literally do like a brag sheet. You have to reflect on all the things that you did really well, reflect on the fact that a company hired you to do this work in the first place, and now you have extra years of experience and like you belong in the space. I think it's a really good place to have strong mentorship and coaching in your life. So rekindling like old people that volunteered to be your mentor or to ever help out, like, yeah, you just need to hear as much as possible that like you do belong, like you got this, because it's a grind, man.
Yeah.
And it feels bad. Like there's no getting around it. It feels bad to get laid off.
No, it's not great.
Yeah.
It's better to leave on your own terms if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We were talking about this earlier, but like asking for a raise, like you're getting asked to do something, and you're wanting to take PTO, but it's like no, you're too critical, and you feel like you want to, I don't know, ask for a higher position or a raise. Have you guys ever gone about doing that?
I'm learning how to do that right now. It doesn't come naturally to advocate for myself, like within the corporate world, just because like I like to just like mind my own business, work hard, and like go home when it's time to go home.
Yeah.
But I do think that doesn't scale well, and that can be incredibly limiting. So like that is something I'm working on, is advocating for myself, making notes of different activities and different activities that I'm doing and the impact. I think because like if you go up to someone and just ask for a raise, they're not going to give it to you, right? You need to demonstrate some kind of reasoning for why you are worth what you're worth. So benchmarking all of your accomplishments sounds a little bit weird and wonky to some people.
Yeah.
But it's truly like what you need to do to maximize your worth to a company.
Yeah.
I think if you go up to your boss and just say, double my salary, bitch.
I'll fucking kill you.
I'm built different.
I know what you did this weekend.
I'll burn this place down.
Like maybe 15% of the time that works because they might have done something that weekend.
Have you ever successfully asked for a raise?
In this current job, I did. Yeah. The
Take
job
us
I'm
through
in
it.
now. So I was getting a new title basically because I went from being the whole team myself to managing like 5 people on the team. And so I needed which was sick. And then, but it was also like, this is a lot more responsibility. Like I gotta learn a bunch of new skills. It's like a very big shift in my day to day. And so we kind of had this rule, it's more formalized now at the company, but if the nature of your role or your job description looks very different than what's on paper, you need to restructure your role. And that may come with like a title change or a salary bump, but it's basically like, we don't have performance-based bonuses or raises. And so it's when your responsibilities shift that like your role has to shift and your pay structure shifts. And so mine did. I started like the conversation with my boss. We had like a couple one-on-ones about it. And so I went and did a bunch of market research on like what somebody in a nonprofit in New York in our space that brings in revenue, managing a team of this size with like our level of funding. I was trying to look for a comp basically.
How do you do that?
There's like nonprofit compensation reports that get published every year, and most industries have like compensation studies. In tech, it's like levels.fyi. You can see what everybody makes at different levels in your industry with your title. And so I think if you're going to negotiate, like it needs to be backed either by impact internally or by like what you could make if you left. And so I looked at all of that and I was like, okay, this is generally what my title looks like. This is what I think it should be. This is what I think is like fair to get paid. And it went really well. It was like well received, good argument. I felt very good about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did it feel like being like a lawyer making a case?
Yeah, honestly, like, I think I got really lucky because I came in very prepared and the conversation was easier than what I thought. Like, my boss had come to the table with the same research and
Yeah.
had an idea about like rewarding performance.
Yeah.
And so it was like a really good scenario. In the past, I've also tried to negotiate a promotion and a raise and just failed miserably. So this is
Yeah.
like very different than that time.
I've heard bad stories where like someone tries to negotiate like for a higher title or a raise, they don't get it, and they're like, "Well, fine, I'm not going to do any work."
Yeah. Yeah, or just leave. Yeah.
That I'm okay with. The first part I think is being very childish.
I think if you're gonna do that, you have to be prepared for them to say no, and you need to have a backup plan. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't go into that with that being your only bullet.
Right. Yeah. Which is why I find it weird when people do get really like, well, I'm just going to do 50% of the work now if you're not going to give me the raise. It's like, why do you like vocalize that? Just, I don't know. If you want to get fired, then like do that, but just don't announce it to the world.
Quiet quitting.
Or, yeah, quiet quitting. Or go find a new job where you get paid more.
It's just that. It's just that easy, huh?
It's all you're doing by announcing it is just setting yourself up to get killed by the company.
The amount of people that
Like that's just stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid chess move.
It's the amount of people who like don't understand the concept of a career limiting move. Like it
Yeah.
baffles me. Like why are you this way? Why are you like putting a target on your back? Like play the game.
Play the game.
If
Exactly.
if you're not building your own company and you're working for someone else's house, play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Companies are. This goes back to the other point. Companies are gonna, at the end of the day, do what's best for the company.
Yeah.
So you should do what's best for yourself,
Yeah.
without screwing over other people or doing something unethical or immoral.
Right.
Right. I think it's also like you gotta understand the limitations of the system you're in. Like if you're in a union job, you probably don't control your own
Yeah.
salary. Like they control it. If you're in a government job, there's a limit. If you're in a nonprofit, they're not going to pay you that much. Like understand bonus season, understand like when to target stuff. I don't know. Have some strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Can't just like flip the table.
I have been waiting my entire career for someone to flip a table when they left. I had a coworker who was let go, and that was sad because I love that dude, good dude. But this dude is one of the biggest humans I've ever met. And I think when he was laid off, again, it was shocking and very, very sad, but there were like softball bats around the office because there was a softball game going on later, and I was like, hey, this could be the time.
This is the time.
This is it. This is your moment.
Take the bat
Yeah.
from the computer.
Just, I'm not looking. It's not my bat.
If you want to get a whack in, go for it.
Because I feel like in movies you always see the person who gets fired and just flips the fuck out, and
Yeah.
everyone is just like, goodbye drinks.
Yeah, we're soft. Talk about career limiting moves. Take the baseball bat to the office.
Yeah. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I also had a buddy who, the day he quit the job, he'd never quit a job before, and he was fucking miserable. Like he was losing weight, he was just like a shell of himself, and it was bad for his health. He told our director that he threw up. I think he made himself throw up, and then he went home and never came back. And he just never ever came back. And that was the last I saw him at work.
Wow.
And nobody heard from John again.
Yeah.
Just like Justin at the Oasis.
Yeah.
Dude, at the Oasis, it's a 4-story restaurant for those of you who aren't familiar. It's a 4-story restaurant. They have elevators for the guests, but all the servers have to climb the stairs all day with fajitas. Like, I don't want to carry the fajitas up 4 flights of stairs all day, every day, when I could work inside in the AC. So yeah, I'm soft.
And it's 107 degrees.
It was a beautiful view. And the food sucked. Fuck the Oasis.
The food is
The
pretty
food's
good.
overrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's only about the aesthetics.
The Oasis is catching strays.
You need the queso and a margarita and the view. That's all you need. Well, okay. There's the one other boundary we haven't talked about at work is like the mental boundary of separating work from like home. And this is something we talked about, Justin, because you and Diane are both like on all day as salespeople, and then you talked about when you come home, you're just like, I need time alone, not talking, separate rooms, like recovery period. So like, how have you done little strategies like that to help your sanity?
I think it changes with your work setup, right? When everyone was in the office 5 days a week, the strategies for that are very, very different than it was during COVID, where your bedroom became your office, right? So now that I'm hybrid, my wife is working from home, like she gets to choose where she works. So like I find that she needs time to like decompress because she's still in her technical office. For me, that separation of church and state, of my apartment and my office, it gives me time to become human again. So I'm not just ramming software down people's throats.
Ooh, okay. So boundaries. We've worked at some companies with some loose crossover between personal and work life. Justin married a coworker.
Shit where I eat.
What are some of the grossest violations of work and personal life boundaries that you've seen?
My first company, we had this HR lady who would fuck like so many people, like, and I was like, honestly, like this girl's so smart, like you can't fire yourself. I think she got fired, and if this is just a lie, I apologize. I'm pretty sure that she was just doing a bunch of blow on the plane with a bunch of execs and just like being zooted around the plane.
Oh my God.
But yeah, like very, very charming lady, very nice. I hope she's doing well.
She played the corporate game too hard.
She played it way too hard.
Although I will say, when I was an intern, my coworker took me to a strip club.
Oh.
Yeah, first strip club in New Orleans on a Tuesday.
How'd that go?
In the summer. Very hot. Yeah, we had to go on this work trip because we were doing some pipe yard around Louisiana. And
Yeah,
You were laying some pipe.
Yeah, you were.
we were laying some pipe. And this guy's like in his early 40s, like single guy, early 40s.
He's got a demon.
Yeah, and we were done with the trip in the morning, and so we had to stay in New Orleans that night. So we're walking around Bourbon Street, and we're like walking through the daytime, and he's like, he's been there like clearly 30 times. He's like, yeah, that's where this place is. That's where Rick's is. That's where, and I was like, we're going by the part where there's like a lot of strip clubs. I was like, I've actually never been to a strip club. He's like, what? Oh, we're going tonight. I'm like, okay, fine, all right. So we go to the casino later on. We do some gambling. And then later that night, he's like, all right, we're going to the strip club. And then we go to this strip club, and we're the only two people in there because I stress, it's a Tuesday on Bourbon Street in the summer. And it is
Sweaty,
seedy, smoke-filled, like just, yeah. It was more like sad than fun. But he was all about it. And he was all about...
Taking the intern.
Yeah. And then later we got back, and my boss was like, well, how was the trip? What'd you guys do? And it's like, yeah, just saw Bourbon Street, went around New Orleans, got some good food.
saw the sights.
Yeah.
All the sides.
Went to the French Quarter, got some beignets.
He definitely was like, I'm going to make a man out of you.
Yeah.
So I'm responsible for this.
Go see some titties.
He's a weird guy.
We should interview him.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I don't know how that guy still has a job.
What is your stance on dating people in the office?
I think it's like, for me, it's too close to home because I've only worked at small companies. Like the team size is 10 to like 50, basically. And so the idea of dating someone on the team and it not going well is just terrifying.
Yeah. Although most of the couples I know in New York, they seem to all meet at work.
But they met at like Yelp with like 3,000 25-year-olds.
Good times.
Yes. You know what's weird though? I do actually know like a lot of other couples that have just met at work. And like I
Spend
think
the most time with them.
you spend like most of your time. I think it's just like, I mean, I think if you're trying to hook up with someone versus dating them, I think that's a different story. Like hooking up is probably a bad idea.
Yeah.
Dating someone, if you're spending time, I mean, I think you should be careful if you're on the same team or like one's a superior. I think that can get messy, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I a prude for saying we should probably avoid that? Like managers probably shouldn't hook up with their direct reports.
No, that's just like common sense.
Yeah, that seems
Yeah.
like
It's-
a bad
Keep it,
idea.
keep it in your pants. Or like transfer teams or like, I don't know.
I know someone back in Austin who met his girlfriend because he was her boss.
Dude, yeah. I've heard it too. I've actually, yeah. The more I think about it, there's so many work hookup
Yeah.
like dating stories that are not great also.
You're kind of missing out.
Yeah, sure.
I would never do that. I don't think if I was like, if someone was on my team or I was overseeing them, I would just set that hard boundary. I would just never even attempt it.
What if it's organic and you're swiping and then you match with your coworker?
And she's on my team and like I'm her manager.
Oh no, that's no.
Okay.
Just like equal role.
Yeah,
That's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah.
There's literally like policies that say it's okay.
Yeah. I think a good policy is if you ask someone to go do something like, hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? And I would say not a yes means no. And one time is all the time.
Yeah, it's the one ask rule.
Yeah.
I think that's like a good office policy. Like,
Yeah.
You ask somebody out once, they say no, we move on.
Yeah.
Please don't harass them.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever seen somebody get fired for what they did at a holiday party or like a work party?
I've heard a lot of wild shit go down at the holiday party.
My first company, they said if you're a minute late the day after the holiday party, it's an automatic firing.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
That's bold.
That.
So stupid.
That's
It's
so
just like
dumb.
the easiest way to just lose
Yeah.
money.
Like
Yeah.
just subway delay.
Right, so everyone just came into the office because we're all 21 and dumb. We're like, everyone's just fucked up coming back. We're like,
Yeah.
well, I'm here to not get fired.
Yes, I almost sleep in the office tonight.
I had a friend, I got a buddy where he was like, he had a couple rough nights in a row, and he like, during his lunch break, he was sleeping in like a dark conference room under the desk, and the directors came in, and then at one point, this crazy lady, she accused him of doing heroin at the office, and he's
Oh
like,
my God.
he's like, look, I'm not doing heroin at the office. I'm just tired.
Yeah.
He,
You need a place to sleep.
he was doing everything else, but that's where he drew the line.
Cocaine, yeah, sure. But heroin, how dare you?
Not in my office.
Not cool. Love it. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok,
And weird Reddits.
and
Yeah,
weird
after this
Reddits.
one.
Yeah, 100%.